All right, welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Schematic. Today, we are diving into the world of product launches. We'll be exploring the key ingredients that make a launch successful, while also uncovering some of the potential pitfalls that can really derail the entire process. So, we'll talk about common mistakes, areas often overlooked, and the crucial elements that demand the most attention. And to guide us through this conversation, we are very excited to introduce our special guest for today, Stu Accola. Stu is a B2B marketer with more than 15 years of experience leading product marketing and branding for industrial companies. As a senior marketing manager at Marmon Retail Solutions, part of Marmon Holdings and Berkshire Hathaway, Stu leads marketing for 3 companies that help top retailers like Walmart, Kroger, and Amazon enhance operational efficiency and elevate their customer experience. Stu is especially passionate about helping companies launch new products. Why we're talking about this today.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yep. He has dedicated years of studying and adopting best practices from elite product launch teams and shares his insights on LinkedIn. Over the course of his career, he has successfully brought more than 30 products to market and helped establish companies starting from scratch establish internal processes and repeatable success. When he isn't launching new products, Stu enjoys spending time with his wife and 2 young kids at home in Milwaukee and is looking forward to attending his 14th consecutive Indy 500 this May.
That's so cool.
Yes, we are definitely going to dive into that a little bit more in a second. But
If we
first,
just want to talk about that the whole
Yeah.
time, I
yeah,
could go a
we could
couple
just
hours. I mean, it's up
I've
to
got
you.
questions for sure.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And we will. But before, I just want to say thank you so much, Stu. I'm very excited to talk about this topic because I personally don't have a lot of experience as a marketer in product launch. So I am very eager to learn from you and hear what you have to say. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. So normally we start off with an icebreaker related to travel, but since you've kind of mentioned in this bio your Indy 500, I want to dive into that a little bit more.
Super
So
Okay.
fan. Yeah.
yeah, so tell us a little bit about that. How did you get into that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I first went there when I was a young man, and
Mhm.
I just kind of went there, and as a whim, it was just one of those bucket list items. I've always enjoyed racing.
Mhm.
And I thought I might go there once, but it just absolutely grabbed me.
Yeah.
There is so much history to that event. There is so much on the line for the drivers. 300,000 people come. It is the largest
Wow.
sporting event in the world every year, and of course the speed of the cars. I mean, it is just so fun. And actually today, yesterday was May 1st. This is the month of May. This is when they really start kicking off all the excitement for it. So it's just a lot of buildup to the day of the race. And it's my favorite day of the year.
So
That's awesome.
Are you down there for the whole weekend? What's your usual game plan?
I go in on the night before.
Okay.
One day when I'm retired, I'll probably be there like for the whole week prior.
Yeah.
But no, I just go down for the night before and come back the night after.
Okay.
Nice. Can you
Are
like
you
watch them practice? Like, is that a thing?
Yeah, so for the week ahead of it, there's about a week long of practice, which is really fun. Actually, like it's like 6 hours long, but I'll like have it on the background while I'm working, and that's part of the fun is all the build
Yeah.
up for it and the practice. So yeah, I absolutely love the event, and yeah, I don't think I'm ever gonna stop not going.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
You don't
Well, I
have to
feel
you don't have to go into too many details, but are you in the stands or are you like in the center area, shirtless with your chest painted,
Yes.
running around?
Well, that's part of the beauty. Everybody can enjoy it the way they want to enjoy it, you know?
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, there's the people that are there to party, no doubt. I mean, there'll be the snake pit in the middle, and there's a
Yeah.
bunch of bands playing, and like probably at the end, they probably didn't even know a race happens, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm a huge nerd. The seats are right across from the leaderboard in the pits. I had the headphones on. I'm
Mhm.
listening to team radios. I I've done I've definitely dug into the strategy of it. I know what's happening on each lap, so
Wow.
I am very nerdy about it. I
That's
I
can't
so
love
help
that.
it.
cool,
It's
though.
just the start. Just who I am. I can't help but just dive deep into it.
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
So do you
Yeah,
bring your family or not at this point? Are your
not
kids
it.
I don't know your kids' age, but are they too young for it?
Yeah, too young. I have a 4-year-old and 1-year-old. So
Okay.
I'm slowly introducing it to my 4-year-old. The
Uh-huh.
Milwaukee Mile is going to have some races this year.
Yeah,
So
they brought that back this summer, right? That's
exactly.
super
I went,
cool.
yes, it is. So I've gone every single year. So this will be his first time going. But yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. It's a long day when you go to this
Yeah.
race. You go there
Yeah.
very early, and it goes well into the evening. So got the guy's got my son's got to get a little older. We'll see if my daughter wants to come too. I hope they both
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kinda
Awesome.
when they're at that age, because mine are 6 and 4, and we went to the Brewer game. We usually try to pick, like, 1 or 2 Brewer games a year where we can
Hmm.
get cheap seats because I think we watched about 5 minutes of the game on Tuesday. All they wanna do is play at the little things, throw the baseballs and get cotton candy and go to the playgrounds. They don't wanna watch any baseball whatsoever, so
Yeah.
Yeah. Staying in
which is
one place
fine.
for too long.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just gotta set your expectations when you go on those days versus the days where you're there to watch.
Yeah, I might
So
need to get some advice from you. I'm about to start that. We're going to do the first Brewer game this year. We're excited
nice.
about that, but
Very
low
cool.
expectations about sitting there and watching a lot of baseball.
Yeah, you just gotta go into it. I told my wife, like, because 'cause I'm a big baseball guy, and I know you are too, Stu, but I go into those games like, "Hey, this isn't about the game. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter where our seats even are. We're gonna be walking around the whole time."
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, like I said, there's 162 baseball games, right? So you enjoy it the way you want to enjoy it. My wife,
Absolutely.
she is an expert tailgater, that's her experience of baseball. And you know what? That's completely fine.
Yep,
Yep.
totally.
She goes for the social aspect.
Well, yes, definitely.
Yep. Definitely. I can relate. But that's good. I think you're priming them, you manage your expectations now, and then maybe one day they'll be really into it too, and they'll have they'll nerd out on it like you do.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I love it.
Very cool. All right. Well, that's awesome. I do want to dive into product launch, even though I know you could probably talk about the Indy 500 for the whole episode. But that's what we're here to do. So let's start by just kind of getting to know you, Stu, a little bit and your story and kind of how you fell into B2B and industrial marketing.
Sure. Well, I fell into it, I just fell into it, like so
Yeah.
many other people in B2B.
Hmm.
I went to school up in the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh, and it's up there in the Paper Valley. And there's many manufacturers up there doing paper related things. Kimberly Clark is the best example.
Hmm.
And I landed a couple internships and eventually started off my career in product management for a manufacturer of single use paper disposables and things like the dental world and physician office. So, like, very likely you've had one of their products when you go to the dentist office, and that piece of plastic
Hmm.
paper that gets on your
Yeah,
shirt protected.
for
So,
sure.
sexy stuff, guys. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's been but it's and so I started off in the healthcare world and eventually made it into other markets as well. And I've just never felt the need to move away from it. I
Mhm.
look back on some of the industries I've got to learn about, the healthcare world, and the trucking world now as well. I've been in humongous John Deere facilities, Caterpillar, Freightliner. I've been in hospitals all over the country. I've been in grocery stores all over the country. I mean, B2B, I think, is really fun. And then there's
Mhm.
just unique challenges on the marketing side as well. So, I've been in this ever, since I started my career, and I've just stayed in it.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
love that. I think that, Chad and I can probably relate too, where you just learn so much about the world and like how the world works being
Yeah.
in B2B and learning about all these different industries that help really make the world go around. And um, I love it too for those very same reasons. So, yeah, very
Yeah, I
cool.
agree.
Yeah, that's my favorite part for sure is just
Hmm.
learning about the companies we work with and kind of, I always tell people it's typically they make a part that goes into something bigger, that goes into something bigger, that goes into something really cool. It's
Yeah.
usually how it
Yes.
works. But
Yeah. Like, even when you were talking about those bibs, I'm like, "I wonder if that's a nonwoven because we have, like, a client that makes wa nonwoven material. Like, I would
Very good.
never
Yeah.
normally think that kinda things.
100%, yeah, and it's every day all around us. You just stuff you don't think about until you're kind of in that world doing it,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so oftentimes it's yeah, it makes the world go around, and it's good quality products that are really
Mhm.
important for
Right,
Yeah,
right.
making, various industries work. So I agree.
Yeah.
I've been really glad to fall into this world.
yeah,
Something's gotta catch that drool out of your mouth when your dentist is asking you questions as
right.
they're working on your mouth, you
Yeah,
know?
you're
Yeah,
like,
why are
"Not
they
not
talking
the
to me?
time."
Well,
Why do they
this
do that?
I don't
And
I know.
I
Well,
always say it to my wife, like, talking is one thing, like, if they're telling a story, great, but they're asking questions that I literally can't answer you. Like, I don't know what you want from me right now.
Oh my gosh, so true. I love that. All right, well, tell us now about, kinda your role today at Marmon Holdings and what you do over there.
Yeah, so yes, I'm at Marmon Holdings, which is owned by Berkshire Hathaway. There's about 120 different businesses all around the world based out of Chicago. And today I am within the retail group, and I get to lead marketing for four of our brands. And one of the pieces that I do for that role is to lead product launches for the whole group along with my team. So at one point or another, we have usually 4 to 6 different product launches that we have in store. So yeah, it's a lot to coordinate for sure, but it's a lot of
Mhm.
fun. So I've been there 6 years now, and it's probably been the best stop of my career so far. It's a really unique company where we like to say it's a small company, but you have the resources of a big company behind you. So you're
Mhm.
able to yeah, it's smaller teams. We're able to move a little bit faster, but you still have that support of a larger team. So it's been a really good fit for me.
Yeah, it's kinda the
Awesome.
best of both worlds there.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. And I think this will be a good, question to set the stage a little bit. But if you had to choose what aspect of marketing you're most passionate about, would you say
Wow.
it's product launches?
Most yes, definitely. Well, being in, B2B industrial marketing, marketers like myself, when you've been around for a little while, you've pretty much touched everything once, which is great. You don't have to
Mhm.
just specialize. But, when I think about the area that I've really dived into and tried to specialize, has definitely been product launch. And, when I think about why it is that it gets me so excited, I think it most relates to my background of being a starting pitcher. I
Mhm.
played all the way through high school and into college. And a starting pitcher, if you don't know, normally has 5 to 6 days in between each start or the times that they pitch. And you develop a process on what you're going to do from a strategic standpoint, what you do from a conditioning, throwing, your mental preparation, and ultimately it gets to the day that you need to pitch, and then you just go out there and compete 100%. Let the chips fall where they may. You learn, and then you move forward, and you just keep doing the
Mhm.
process over and over again. And, I think for me, there's so many parallels between product launch and pitching, where again, you're looking backward. What did you learn from last time? You start strategizing ahead. Okay, what are we going to do? And then there's that build up, launch day, and you go out there and shout
Mhm.
about what's so great about it. So, and I think too, when I think back on what I loved being a starting pitcher, it's actually the process, the work in between starts is something that I really enjoyed. So, it's just been, it's just been a really good fit for me, and I've really tried to dive into it. And I think too, so many industrial companies I've learned don't have a great process for doing
Mhm.
something like this. So it's a way I've been able to add a lot of value to companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a lot of our clients are kind of that small to mid-size manufacturing group that I know are going to relate and resonate with this topic, but might not have all the resources or might not know, the best way to approach a product launch. So I think this is a really great topic. And it is interesting to see those parallels between starting pitcher and product launch. I would have never thought of that because, not really a sports person over here, but that's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super cool. I have thought about that before from the starting pitching that you were talking about and, like, that those off days and kind of how I don't know, how they can gear up for that next start, and that kinda hit when you said you enjoy the process, that's really interesting. Like that is a part of it, and that's something that you kind of, work through as well. It's not just about when you get into the game, really. You're not just sitting there thinking about, oh, I wish I was playing today, but you're thinking about the actual build up to that
Hmm.
start and to that product launch, right? There's a lot that goes into the lead up to it.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that process, and there's so much you can do to improve each time as well.
Yeah,
And
right.
you're always tweaking, you're always shifting because your customers shifting, the marketing channels are shifting, whatever it may be. So it's just it's something that yeah, right. It's never done.
Yeah,
Your
Right.
right.
process of how you
Yeah,
bring products to launch.
Yeah, even
very
though the
cool.
stages are the same each time, there's gonna be nuances every time. It's not necessarily like a rinse and repeat because each time you go into
No.
it, you're gonna be, like you said, tweaking. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense. Cool. So I want to kind of dive right in and start talking about the 4 product launch pitfalls. So we're gonna go ahead and start with number 1, which is not starting with a strong go-to-market plan. So let's just start by talking through a little bit about what that means, what that is.
Yeah. So, I think first off, it's good to talk about what a go to market plan isn't. So, I think oftentimes in industrial companies, it gets confused with the business case. So, I look at this as separate. They're equally important. Business case is something that's going to be way on the front end of the launch, where you have those initial ideas of what the product may be. Maybe you've already are about to or have completed some market research and understanding some issues that your target hopefully your target audience has experienced, and then of course developing how are we actually going to make money with this thing from a financial model standpoint. But the go to market plan is something different, and it's something that is solidified a little further on in that new product development process. And this is where I've heard it best described as it's the North Star for your product launch.
Okay.
Mhm.
It is the foundation, and it's where everything starts, and it's where you're going to go to throughout the whole time through the process. So, this is where you're formulating the strategy for how you're going to build awareness and ultimately demand with a specific target audience. You start really solidifying what is going to be that compelling value proposition and key messaging that you're going to want to use. And then, maybe most importantly, it's about creating alignment with your internal stakeholders and
Hmm.
thinking about who's all going to be doing what. So, what I just described there is a lot of work.
Yeah.
If you're doing it right, you probably are going to spend the most time here building that go to market plan than anywhere else
Mhm.
in the process. But it's worth it though, because when you have something like this now, you're able to for example, get good feedback from the team. So now you have a
Hmm.
document to show others and have them, I say, beat it up after you do
Mhm.
that initial draft. You have a document for communicating timelines and needs that you're going to have for the launch, as well as communicating up to the leadership group of saying, hey, this is what we're going to do and why, and this is how I'm going to go about doing it. So hopefully there's not going to be things once you're getting the launch that you're having to go back and rework. It's a good
Right.
communication tool that way. Um, and then also too, this can very easily be turned around and used for external teams. So creative briefs or strategy briefs. So when I come to a team like you guys,
Mhm.
it's on me to understand the customer and the strategy and what's going to resonate with them. But obviously, for a lot of industrial marketers, it's a small team. You're going to have to rely on outside partners. So I'm hopefully
Hmm.
going to be setting you guys up for success in talking
Mhm.
about what it is we're trying to do. So that go to
Mhm.
market plan is so important, and it's so oftentimes not utilized in companies.
Yeah. I think a big thing you touched on there that for me, maybe I'm making this too personal, but is just the team alignment aspect. Like
Right.
that part for me, being kind of new into like a leadership role in marketing and sales is probably one of the most challenging things. And what I've learned is kind of what you're saying, figuring that out very early on in the process, who's needed for what input you need. Because like you said, you don't want to face later down the line where someone has objections or there's not full buy-in or there's confusion. So yeah, I just really resonated with that piece there.
Yeah, the earlier you get everyone on the same page, the less things you have to change,
Mhm.
right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Definitely.
product launch is a team sport. That's
Mhm.
something that
For
I talk
sure.
about a lot internally. And yeah, I mean, so many people and so many people bring great perspectives. Your sales team, customer service folks, the research people, yourself. You're hopefully going out there talking to
Mhm.
customers. So, and the things that we learn land with people differently. So, yeah, absolutely, it's important to get that team feedback.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think another part of that, which may be kind of a no-brainer, but not only it's important for the feedback, but it's important to solicit that feedback to make everyone on the team feel involved in that project as well. Even if you
Buy-in.
don't get, yeah, the
Mhm.
buy-in, you got to have the buy-in. We're going through some changes with some internal like software stuff here at Top Floor. And it's a big initiative for us this year, replacing some of our tools. And it's like we were talking about opening it up to the team, and letting them kind of provide feedback and kind of demo some of the software. And some of the conversations were like, well, I don't know if we have too many people looking at it, stuff like, well, it's still important for them to feel involved in this process because it's something that's going to affect the entire company.
Mhm.
I I think that's an excellent point, and that's a great. I think too, if especially for I'll call them the frontline folks that are talking to customers, we want to
Mhm.
try to get as much buy-in as we can from them because we want them to believe what it is that they're talking about,
Right.
and the literature they're using, the website they're pointing people to. Hopefully, we can get them on board and use that as a tool to jumpstart that sales process.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That actually leads me to a kind of a follow-up question is just what teams are involved this early on? I mean, obviously sales and marketing, but you're also talking to customer experience. Are there any other teams that kind of need to weigh in when it comes to the go-to-market plan, or who do you kind of rely on?
I mean, it should be the first draft will come from myself or the product
Mhm.
marketer or product manager, whoever that role is. I think it needs to start there. And you've
Mhm.
hopefully got a pretty good gist of what this thing's going to be. But then after that, I welcome any and all feedback. And in particular, I'm thinking about people that are close to the product and people that are close to the customer, especially.
Hmm.
So,
Mhm.
I mentioned people who have maybe early on was showed the first beta concept to a customer. They probably got some great feedback there. I'd love to have them a part of that.
Mhm.
I said customer service because they don't get thought of so oftentimes for something like this, but they're talking to your customers more than probably anybody.
Mhm.
Sure.
So they're going to have some good perspective. Your application engineer, whoever it is, I welcome that feedback. And when you're doing the go to market plan early on, you have time to get feedback from multiple areas of the company to help improve it.
Absolutely. Cool. When it comes to kind of putting the like research together, you touched on, messaging, audience research. Does that audience research more so happen earlier, like in that business development planning, or do you do a lot of that too in the go to market, or has that already been figured out? Kind of where does that fall in here?
I would say it's kind of like a sliding scale, right? In the very
Okay.
beginning, you don't really have a great idea what it's going to
Yeah.
be, and then it gets more concrete as you go on.
Mhm.
So early on, I may have some hypothesis of what the right messaging might be for that audience, but then as you get further on, maybe you have again your first concept that maybe you're going to put out with a customer and test, or you're getting around for feedback. You're getting inputs along the way to help drive what the messaging should be, and then when you get really close, you might be in a soft launch period, or some people call it a pre-selling. Even then, even really close at the end, you might still be refining, and even after the launch, you might be refining
Mhm.
some more. So, I mean, I would say you're always testing and learning throughout, but it's going to be more solidified when you come to that launch time.
Yeah, because you kind of I'm assuming you rely a lot on feedback and the reception of it to know, like, are you on the mark? Where do you need to kind of pivot? And yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I mean, I can think about times where I just mentioned soft launch, where we were really
Mhm.
close to we're really close to launching a product, and I joined some of our sales team on some initial sales calls with customers that had been involved with the development of it. I called it like my summer tour. I went to like 3-4 places,
Yeah.
world tour. It was like all over the country too. It was a lot of traveling.
Oh, cool.
As we were first introducing the product, I mean, there were just little nuances, little things that you heard. And I was like, oh shoot, I need to tweak this. I need to tweak that. Thinking about, the headline, the H1 on your product page, or, some of your LinkedIn ads. Oh, was that really, that how what the problems are, but then you get more detail about why it's a problem, so that you
Mhm.
can, tailor your messaging to really be tailored to that specific audience, and they'll really understand that you understand the pain that they're experiencing. So,
Sure.
yeah, I don't think you're ever really finished, but it improves
Right.
along the way.
Yeah. Many iterations, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Mhm. Um, what might like a half-baked strategic plan look like? What are some kind of like common missing pieces that uh, you might overlook or not think about in this kind of go-to-market strategy?
Well, I mean, the first one is the target audience, right?
Mhm.
If you say it's for everybody, you failed, start over, rip it up. I mean, nothing is for
Automatic fail.
everybody.
Yeah, go back to
Automatic
go.
fail. Uh, I think about it, and even too, I've seen times where teams are just leading with, "This is for this market," right? But you'd
Mhm.
have to go more detailed, because we know in B2B, it's a team buying decision, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I think research shows, what is it, like 5 to 7? You got the decision maker, the user, the influencers, etc. You have to get more granular about who it is that you really need to be really meeting with. Who's going to really start the conversation, who's going to start the sales cycle, right? So
Mhm.
getting real good clarity on who it is you want to talk to is so important. And
Sure.
I should say too, now, especially with like the how amazing it is you can target through something like LinkedIn too. Now you can use it going even further beyond messaging, is, from a targeting standpoint with ads, and you get right in front of the exact people you need to talk to. So yeah, I think that is really important. That's probably the biggest thing that I think a lot of companies miss when they're doing this.
Absolutely.
Makes sense.
Something we're kind of implementing or doing a better job of implementing is that account-based marketing. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's not just like, well, I just want to target everybody in this industry. Like that's going to be way too broad. You need to really look at those accounts, like who specifically in that company, is someone that you want to talk to. Who do you have connections with already? Who's the right person from your company to do that outreach? So that makes a lot of sense to do the really granular research, as you go into your targeting for sure.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's really hard, and I can think about, early on in my career, I can think of one launch in particular that did not go well because we didn't understand the buying process, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
We thought it was, in the healthcare world, it's very important to go through buying groups is a big piece, GPOs, and
Sure.
we didn't have a really good sense of how you can get into there and how do you penetrate and get that conversation started. So yes, I mean, I like to think about it as reverse engineering the sales cycle, right? So
Right.
begin at the end, who is it you want to talk to, and keep backing out from there on how you're going to get in front of them.
Yeah. I want to move on to the next big mistake, and that is sort of related to this, but not starting launch preparation early enough. Tell us a little bit about what that means.
Yeah. So, well, here's a scenario that so oftentimes happens. And I'm thinking people who have led launches can understand this that are
Mhm.
listening. So, the NPD team, engineering, new product, or, whoever it is that is actually developing the product is working really hard to get this product formulated and ready to be available for sale. And inevitably, things get off the tracks a little bit because you're learning the first thing doesn't work and you got to go back to the drawing board. Um,
Mhm.
there's delays that happen. You can't get the product, the components that you need correctly. So inevitably, things probably stretch a little bit further on than you had hoped.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, you're looking at it and you go, oh gosh, now we can finally, pick our head up out of the details here and look ahead. Oh, we're actually getting ready to launch. Oh, let's go get the marketing people. And now you give it to them and it's like a ticking time bomb. We got to get to
Mhm.
market ASAP.
Mhm.
So they put something together. It's maybe a little bit more half baked. And then they give it to the
Mhm.
sales team. And that's a ticking time bomb because, well, we have sales projections that we have to hit this year, guys.
Right.
So it becomes a mess. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really, I think, incumbent on the marketing team to try to insert themselves much earlier on in that new product development process, because there's a lot of inputs that you're going to need to go about putting together an effective launch, but also too, you don't want to lose on all the insights that are happening early on there as well. So,
Mhm.
in general, I like to say, the product marketer, marketing manager, whoever it is that's in charge of leading that launch, you want to try to be involved at the very beginning and maybe at least maybe just kind of, staying connected with the product. But once you really get to the point where maybe it's you kind of have 50% confidence, or all right, we think we really got something here. We think we might actually get to market. That's where you start beginning your preparations and communicating with the team the types of needs that you're going to be needing. So yeah, you getting involved early on is so important to avoid that fire drill, and most importantly, maybe impact the quality of the product launch that you want to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so funny. It happens all the time with website products as well. I mean, it's a product, right? I guess launch in a way.
Mhm.
And I can't tell you how many conversations I have where you start out, you have like a timeline that you agree upon, right? And then it takes longer. And the biggest mistake I think people can make is all of a sudden you're trying to still meet that original timeline. So you're rushing things at the end and you're rushing that process, like we talked about. And it's like you spent all this time, budget, energy, and now you're just gonna, rush it at the end and mess up the whole thing. Like it just doesn't
Mhm. Mhm.
Product
make sense.
launches can fail for a million different reasons, but the last thing you want to have happen is that you actually did put together a fantastic product that solves a great problem that you want to skimp the actual launch that you're going to
Right.
be
Mhm.
doing in, because the
Yeah.
the product launch is probably more important than ever. It's so hard to get in front of your audience that you don't want to dilute the great work that you need to have happen there.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Don't cut corners at the end just to meet some deadline that you had originally.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think the key thing here is involving the right teams early, obviously, specifically marketing in the case of product launch. And I really liked what you said about um like marketing having the initiative and inserting themselves, because I think the alternative, just waiting, to be told like, all right, here's this product, like go launch it, you're gonna definitely set yourself up probably for failure.
Yeah.
And I think that's good to just say like, no, just assert yourself. If you maybe like catch whiff or wind of like something's coming,
Yeah.
just ask the questions and get involved in the conversation early if you can.
Well, hopefully, most companies have product roadmaps. So you have
Mhm.
visibility at a high level. Okay, here's what's happening. So when I'm looking at those product roadmaps, I'm usually thinking, maybe 25, halfway there. Okay, that's where I'm going to really need to start getting involved. And I think this too is in a little bit larger organizations. You might have a product manager that's leading the way, and you might have dedicated project management. So you need to be good friends with them. You
Mhm.
should
Mhm.
be having regular check-ins with them because they are on the same page with you. They want to have a
Mhm.
fantastic launch, and they are going to know that there's inputs that they need to give you in order to develop the launch to be impactful. So those are the people that I'm thinking about. I want to stay close
Mhm.
with early on.
Yeah.
Makes
I'm
sense.
sure that this totally depends situation by situation, but how early, like, do you typically have to start planning your launch?
So it's dependent on the type of product launch. So
Mhm.
if it's just a product line extension, right? There's a
Mhm.
product and it's going to be in a new color, or
Mhm.
we're adding more depths to it. I mean that's a smaller piece, right?
Mhm.
So that might be, I don't know, 4 weeks or something,
Mhm.
right? Because even still, in something small like that, well, maybe you need to do more photography, or maybe
Right.
not only do you have to update your website, you have to update your distributors' websites. I mean,
Mhm.
So even in something as small as that, it might take some decent amount of time.
Sure.
Whereas then if it's a much bigger product launch where maybe it's a whole new brand, it's a new platform, it's um, it's something where we're really going to need to educate the market and you need more assets in order to do that. It's a more complex sale. You're looking, months of preparation in order to do it correctly. So I think it's really dependent on the type of product launch that you're launching.
Sure. That makes total sense. Mhm. When it comes to kind of starting conversations with the product development team, how do you kind of ensure that you're getting what you need from them early on, whether it's product specs, photos, things like that? What kind of deliverables are you looking for?
Well, first off, you'll have your handy dandy go to market plan, right in
Mhm.
front of you. That's been you've been
Yep.
keeping updated all the way along, and
Mhm.
part of that is scoping out the deliverables that you're going to want to create for that product launch. So, um, so you look at those and kind of reverse engineer from there. So,
Mhm.
for example, I mentioned photography. Well, you actually need a physical, tangible thing to photograph, or
Mhm.
maybe
Mhm.
you also need to put it in an environment that's going to actually demonstrate that use and really communicate that we understand where this thing is going to be used and where it's going to be beneficial.
Mhm.
And product specs. The if it's a video, there might need to be a location secured to do that video. So yeah, it's all dependent on what it is you're trying to create.
Mhm. Yeah, and like you said, that go-to-market plan is your North Star. So you have that there and you're like, "These are the things that I'm gonna need," and hopefully that lays it out for that team.
Yeah, and I'm
Mhm.
right in the midst of that right now, where we
Oh,
have
yeah.
a pretty complex one coming up, and we also this is one where we rely on a lot of distributors, and they all have unique needs that they need to be put on their website. So we're collecting all those needs and then distilling it down into a list of the inputs that we're going to need from the product development team in order to help us, along with timelines for when we need it to ultimately complete everything.
Yeah, makes sense. Launching into mistake number 3, confusing product training with sales training. So again, go ahead and tell us what that means.
Yeah, so this is one that I've seen many times as well. And so th- a product training is not the same as a sales training to me. So let me explain the differences. So
Mhm.
here oftentimes this is what I see. We're going to have a product training. So we bring in the sales team from all around the country. We get in the conference room. The technical folks stand up and they give an overview on the product and they do a great job. They explain every single button and feature and this does this. And if you press the button, that happens, whatever it is. And then they go, thanks so much, guys. And then the sales group talks together about how they're going to sell this thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, that is very important, what we talked about. We didn't actually teach them how to sell it, right? I
Right.
mean, you got to put yourself in the shoes of your sales group. Especially in industrial companies, they typically have very big territories or they have very big customer lists. And, you're asking them to put any capital that they built with their customers on the line of introducing a new product and saying, I think this is great for you. So you have to really help them to do things like identify who an ideal customer might be for this. This is where
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
share all that work that you did way up front from a market research perspective. You have to help them overcome objections. Help. We know the types of things that they're going to come back at us against, and understand the competition, whatever it may be. We have to set them up for success. So, when I'm doing a sales training on a new product, it's might be a full day. And
Mhm.
I'm going to have people up on their feet where we are going to maybe do a field trip and go to
Mhm.
an actual customer. That's bonus points, by the way, if you can do that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And we're really going to get deep into the details on not only what this product is, but the value it provides and how we can help you go out and sell this thing. So I think, when you do that, your sales team is really going to appreciate you. And ultimately, you're going to have the most chance for success.
Mhm. Do you have to bring in like going back to customer experience or customer service? Do you bring in those teams as part of this too because they might not have, I guess, always like the technical background that the product developer has, but they also have to deal with like common questions or
Questions, right?
Yeah.
yeah, like are they involved at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. That product training, I might lean on the technical folks to probably lead that.
Mhm.
I think it's great to bring them in from buy-in, like you said, Chad,
Mhm.
to give them to have their. So oftentimes too, these people have a real passion for what it is that they created, and they
Right.
have so much expertise on it. I love for them to get in front of the sales group and share their expertise and their passion for it. Also to product managers or market research, whoever it is, it's great to get different voices in there. The best trainings I've had too is, maybe on the very front end of that new product development, we've had a sales leader that's helped connect us with a customer to do some initial trials. And maybe they had some really good experiences. Have the sales leader appear, go up there and talk about it. Talk about, really building credibility for this product launch and getting the team
Mhm.
excited. That's an
Mhm.
excellent way. And then, man, if you can get a customer in to actually talk about it too, I've seen that a couple of times. That's awesome as well. So then that
Mhm.
salesperson can be plenty comfortable asking a bunch of dumb questions before they go in front of their real
Mhm.
customers and
Right.
actually play things off or test different things that they want to say to them. So I said it before, product launch is a team sport. And I think the actual sales training that happens, I think it's great for that to be a team effort because everybody
Mhm.
brings different perspectives, but it just brings some fun and some energy to it as well. This is a big event.
Yeah.
We're coming together. We're about to launch something. I think it's great to have more people involved.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's really hard to sell something that you're not excited about or passionate about. I
Mhm.
mean, there's people out there, right, that can do that. There's those sales professionals that can sell anything, but majority of people, and especially in B2B kind of manufacturing clients that we work with, those sales reps they got to see the benefits for their customers as well. It kind of reminds me of when I first started out in marketing. I worked at a yellow page company and I was selling yellow page advertising, and I didn't use the yellow pages at all, right? And so I didn't believe in it whatsoever, and trying to call people and sell that when you knew it was like a dying thing was
Mhm.
one of the hardest jobs.
Yeah.
So yeah, make your sales rep jobs easy. Make them want to sell that product. Make them want to talk to their customers about how it's going to benefit them.
You just mentioned in there that you didn't use the sale or the yellow pages, right?
Right,
So,
right.
I mentioned earlier too, the hands-on training, getting up, using the thing. I mean, boy, that builds confidence as well.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Not just a video or a demo of how to do it. You've actually been in there. You've moved the thing around. You've set it up. You've teared it down. You maybe did some troubleshooting, whatever it may be. That is a huge way to build confidence. And
Huge.
yeah, and hopefully excitement for selling the thing too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even here at Top Floor, our best sales reps or account executives have come from other areas of the business where they had years of experience understanding, websites and the products that we offer and sell before they went into a sales role. And
Yeah.
there's a number of people who came from outside industries where we brought in, to do sales because sales was their background, but not necessarily digital marketing or websites. And those worked out, half the time compared to having people internally that like
Mhm.
understood things and then went into a sales role.
That is
Yeah.
so common too in industrial manufacturing where
Yeah,
salespeople have that technical background, right?
right.
Um,
Mhm.
and it's appropriate, right? Because there's some pretty, some pretty technical products that are being sold in these worlds. So having that combination of that, yeah, that expertise to build credibility, and then hopefully that sales sense, right? It's a great
Mhm.
combination in this world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I can't tell you how many sales and marketing people that we interact with on a daily basis that are in those positions, and they're all from like engineering backgrounds or new product development backgrounds. It seems like one and
Mhm.
two is like that's the route, they came up from in their organization.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah. I think that's just such a great point to have touched on is just the momentum building and the excitement about it and getting them passionate about what it is that they're selling. I want to ask kind of on the opposite side of that, do you ever experience or is this ever a point in time where sales has maybe shows like resistance, or is like, we're going to need XYZ in order to like sell this? Like, do you get that kind of feedback ever? Or how, and if so, how do you handle that?
Yeah, when they're just, like, not excited about it, how does that go? Like, this
'Cause
product
change
is
can be
not.
scary for some people,
Oh,
and
for
I don't
sure.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, well, first off, hopefully, I would have had touch points with the sales group ahead of that.
Earlier
So I
on.
mentioned, for example, some of the sales leader, having a sales leader like involved in the new product development can maybe help uncover some of those immediate things that maybe as a day-to-day sales leader, I'm not going to see. I'll just say though, too, I've spent a lot of time in my career being on sales calls. So I've done so many of those. I have a good general sense of the types of things that they're up against. So I
Sure.
think that's a one way to overcome that. Having a sales leader involved along the way um, to help overcome some of that. And
Sure.
as a in our teams too, we give a sense of we show the new product roadmap that's coming so that the sales leaders are aware, and sometimes some conversation comes that way. But you know what? Even still, when you come to launch day, and if your sales team are bringing up some questions about things that they need in order to win, that's a positive. That tells
Yeah.
me
Mhm.
they are engaged. They see the value. They go, "Hey, I need this. Can you develop this sales tool or this marketing campaign? I wouldn't say it this way. I would say it that way. We need some more promotion here." These are all great things. This tells me they're
Mhm.
engaged. They want to sell this thing. So I wouldn't look at that as a negative thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really, really good point, and I think to relate it back to kinda what we do and stuff, the least successful projects are those where we get into the feedback area of, say, a design or a website build or something along those areas, and we don't hear anything. Because then either one of 2 things, they're not happy, or they're not really giving it the, kind of, input that it needs, or they're not excited about it, so there is no feedback, and then you're gonna hear that feedback probably later on when it's too late.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I'd say too is, before we get off this is, I mentioned the product training is so important. Number one, you actually need the sales training, actually help them how to sell this, where they need to go. But what's also really important too is doing an overview of all the sales and marketing tools that are going to be available to them. And
Sure.
if you're doing your job right, you will have a good understanding of the sales process. And you're also going to understand the type of objections they're going to come up against.
Mhm.
So, this is where, as a marketer, you can really help them with success. So, for example, we know that there's going to be certain, maybe you have a very technical buyer. So if you show them a really beautiful, high level infographic, that's not going to get the job done. No, we're
Mhm.
going
Right.
to develop a technical white paper where we're going to get down into the nuts and really explain how it is that we created a solution that helps you overcome your problem. Or maybe this is where an in-depth video is going to take place as opposed to something that's a little more glossy and fun and fast.
Mhm.
Also, too, we know we're going to always have the objection on price. Even if they think it's a good price, they're going to say, "No, I don't know if I might, I don't know if I like that price." So, what could you do? Could you develop a very high level ROI model or calculator to help explain to
Mhm.
them how they might get a payback,
Mhm.
and hopefully enable them to go back to the people that they need to convince to get the sign off for the project to help them go ahead and sell on your behalf and saying, "Yeah, you can get a reasonable ROI on this." So yeah, the sales tools, it's beyond here's a sales sheet, here's a deck, it's on the website, go, head off and have success. You're hopefully building specific tools to help them along the sales process and helping them
Mhm.
overcome the injections that they're going to have. So, and you're going to have to keep reminding them about it
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Like,
we got a million
for
things in
sure.
our mind. They're going to forget about it because
mhm.
but that's an important part of the product launch training that you do.
Mhm. Well, it kind of goes back to the account research that you do way at the beginning, and identifying, the end user is probably going to want something different, or is going to absorb different information than maybe the decision maker or someone in the C suite if they're involved. Like, they're going to care about different things. So
Right.
you want to have different content, different sales materials that are going to be resourceful for different areas of the buying group. So that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Sure.
Right. And there's some people maybe a little bit higher level is appropriate, maybe more into the weeds is appropriate.
Mhm.
I remember too. I remember there was this person that was launching some software to lawyers. I think it was some kind of software that was, it was a big time saving piece for research ahead of going to trial. Guys, I'm
Mhm.
not a lawyer. I don't know what I'm talking about. But I remember, what I learned from her is, they started off with their messaging. It was, again, much higher level talk, infographics. It was, just a couple bullet points. Great. But what they found was that, lawyers spend a lot of time in legal school reading very in-depth material, right? And we all know the legalese when you're reading a contract or whatever. I mean,
Right.
these people are very comfortable with these types of these kind of documents, and
Mhm.
they expect you to kind of present something similar to them to show that you understand them and that you're very detailed and you're in the weeds on what it is that you're talking about. So they just refreshed everything that they did. They became talking more legalese, I'll say, and they were able to
Mhm.
have much more response because they were really tailoring their messaging to their specific audience. So
Mhm.
really important for all the messaging that you do for your marketing and sales tools, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good example. Yeah, of like a very, lawyers think differently than me, just as like engineers think very differently than me. And so you have to
Right.
kind of keep them in mind, since they, especially engineers, are definitely an end user. I think we see a lot. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you only get this from spending time with them for sure.
hmm
Right.
hmm absolutely. All right. Well, I think we can go ahead and launch into mistake number 4, final mistake that we're going to touch on today. And that is setting and forgetting. So, launch day comes, that's the pinnacle moment. And then you make the mistake of just kind of letting that be the end all be all. So, talk a little bit about what that means, setting and forgetting.
Growing up, I like in my summers before I had a summer job, I was always watching daytime TV, like Price is Right. I'm still awesome at
Oh,
Price is Right.
yes. Uh,
um, watching
I
Sports Center a couple times.
oh,
But
I totally feel that. Yep.
yes, Chad, I know you can
Yeah.
understand that. But part of it felt like it was like the height of infomercials at the time too.
Yep.
And there was this one infomercial that I never forgot. It was Ron Popel, I believe his name was, legendary pitchman, and he had the Showtime rotisserie cooker, and he
Yeah.
always had this tag, "Set it and forget it," and he had the audience say it over and over. So here we
Yep.
are, 30 years later. I'm talking about this right now.
Yeah.
It always had that chicken in there spinning, like the
Yes.
full chicken. It looked so succulent. Yeah, I can totally remember it.
Oh man, it looked great. But
It
yeah,
looked
when
good.
I think about product launches, I thought of set it and forget it because that's so oftentimes what industrial companies do, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So, um, I like to step back and think of it this way. So if you're thinking about for so many industrial companies, it's not like we're selling jeans or Coke. There's not millions upon millions of people that we're looking to sell to. It's probably a pretty defined audience. It might be
Mhm.
20 brands, right? Or 20 companies, and realistically, there's maybe 2 or 3 people inside of there that you actually need to talk to get in the door and start selling your product.
Right.
I mean, it can be bigger, of course, but it's not a humongous audience. So let's
Mhm.
say you got them all in the same room and you ask them to raise their hand and say, who's buying this? Who's looking for my solution right now? Research suggests over and over, it's like 3 to 5% of them are going to raise their hands. And it's not that hard to realize that, right? I mean,
Right.
we are all stretched right now. We have a million things on our plate, both professionally and personally. And the idea that they are looking for your specific solution, and especially in the industrial world, is pretty niche products, right?
Right.
They're not going to be ready to buy always. So,
Mhm.
I think it's so important to realize that you have to play the long game.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
they are not going to be as excited as you in buying this. And even if they do like what you have and they know it's great, they may not still be ready. They may not be
Mhm.
ready to stick their neck out on the line and go to bat for you. You still need to warm them up and educate them. So,
Mhm.
when you launch a product, it's great, it's exciting, there's confetti everywhere, but it doesn't, you don't need to stop there, right? You got to keep playing the long game. And we all know too that sales cycles are going to be take a long time as well. So
Mhm.
it really takes, 3, 6 months or so to really get a gauge on, is this resonating with the market and are we gaining traction?
Mhm.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it's a long game for sure. What what kind of channels or strategies do you use to sort of build momentum and kind of generate demand essentially?
Yeah. Well, I think so. There's a million channels, as you guys well know, right?
Mhm.
But I think it really comes back to first, if part of that upfront work when you're putting your go-to-market plan and you're talking to customers is understanding where do they get their information, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
you know, they hopefully there's a channel or two that start bubbling up, and I'd say just focus there.
Mhm.
It's okay to just say we're going to be awesome at one channel, right? So,
Right.
and you know
Mhm.
what? I'll tell you today, LinkedIn I think is amazing. I
Mhm.
mentioned before the ability to target. We've been doing this here over the last year or so, and really starting to see the success of how you can put something in front of you over and over again. So I think, yeah, the channel is dependent on your audience. Always audience, audience,
Mhm.
audience is the message
Right.
here.
Right.
And I think you just focus on that and do a really good job there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is such a good point with the narrowing it down to how many companies there are and how many people in those companies are actually a part of that buying process. Like that really resonated with me because I mean, you're talking, there's probably 5 people now that are actively ready to buy, looking for my product, in my market. And
Mhm.
then just, the strategy, like you said, just staying in front of those people constantly so that when they are ready to buy, when they become that 5%, that you're top of mind, or at least you're one of the people that they're going to consider when they go through the actual process of, looking to buy or implementing the new thing that you're selling.
Oh,
Mhm.
that is so important. And that's a much broader subject of brand building, no doubt,
Right.
too, right? Is
Yeah.
awareness, but and it plays very closely with product launch too. Yeah, I definitely agree.
I mean, it's so different
Mhm.
than your example of the set it and forget it guy. Is like you can't just because it's new to you and it's exciting, sitting on top of the mountaintop and yelling out about it. It's not just going to make people buy it, right? Because
Right.
it's probably a large investment. It's probably some sort of a capital investment, the product that you're developing or the piece of equipment that you came up with, and it's a long buying cycle. It's a process, right? So it's just being there
Mhm.
as if they happen to start going through that process.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I think that too just calls attention to the types of content that you're developing needs to be all top of funnel, bottom funnel, mid funnel, bottom of funnel,
All
as you guys
across, right?
understand.
Everything.
Exactly. So, you have some of that top of funnel pieces where you're just kind of talking about the general problem that you're dealing with, and then something in the bottom funnel, which is very in depth, talking about the nitty gritty about how awesome your product is. So, I think that's another thing that can't get lost as well, is because I think we're really good about talking. Here's the bullet, benefit, feature. You want to buy it? But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
You want this?
Yeah.
right, exactly. But we know we got to hit them at everybody's in a different stage. And
Mhm.
I think your point too, Chad, about, that you want to be in that consideration set when the time
Mhm.
comes, because
Right.
Right.
realistically, when the time comes, they're not, I don't know about you. When you're buying things, you're not going to look at like 15 different brands before you buy something. There's one or two
Right.
brands right away that you're thinking
Mhm.
about.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
you have to be top of mind and be ready to go.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can relate that. We were just going through car shopping, and Ann heard a lot about this, so I won't go into too much detail. But it's like I'm not going to every dealership in the Milwaukee area. Like you have
Mhm.
a idea, those top like two or three that you said that through whatever methods of research or just word of mouth or whatever, you kind of already have it narrowed down.
Yeah.
So you just want to be in those kind of top three when people are considering buying from your industry, you're buying your product or what have
Oh
you.
yeah, and I think even more so in B2B versus B2C is, like I said before, you're sticking your neck out on the line
Right.
to bring
Mhm.
Yeah,
in
right.
something. I've brought in, in my role, part of it is bringing in agencies, and there's a lot of work that goes into bringing in a
Mhm.
great agency. So, before I bring someone in, I've maybe monitored their stuff for years, really trying
Right.
Mhm.
to understand what they do, and ultimately feel like, yep, I'm really going to go to bat for these guys. So
Mhm.
you're right. B2B is that trust for, I mean, trust is important in B2C, but man, is it important in B2B for sure.
For sure. Yeah, you don't wanna be the person that makes the mistake, or brings in the
Right.
person that makes the
And it's
mistake.
it's an expensive mistake to make.
Right, yeah,
Personally,
very expensive.
professionally,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Right, yeah, you don't wanna
Yep.
be that person.
Yeah, I know this is kind of like opening up a bigger can of worms, but to me, this is really where like thought leadership comes into. And, whether that like relates specifically to the product launch or just kind of more broadly having thought leadership be a big part of your marketing strategy overall. So that you can kind of like you said, like even if they're not in that ready to buy mode, they're still staying engaged with you. They're still learning from you. You're still when they are at that point of narrowing down to the 3 to 5 options that come to mind, they're like, oh yeah, like I've seen some stuff on LinkedIn from them, or like they put out this really cool infographic or video, like whatever the case may be, it helps keep you top of mind.
Yeah, they
Exactly.
just make sure they've heard of you at some point, right? Like, that's
Mhm.
that's the goal, and then bonus points if you are putting out content and stuff that goes further than that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I know we're kind of talking about like what happens after launch, but going back to just like launch day, what does that kind of like look like? Are there certain things that you essentially like turn on? Like, is it a landing page, ads, emails? Like what kind of
Just a big
what
button,
happens on launch day?
one big button that you just flip
Yeah.
a switch.
Yeah.
That would be fun. It's like, here we go. Yeah, press the button. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, yes, there would have been. I think every launch is different, of course, dependent on how big of a launch it needs to be. If it's more of a product extension, all right, we're not going to maybe make too much of a ruckus in
Mhm.
between other pieces, other touch points that we're having with our audience. We might just more casually. Oh, by the way, we've extended this product line. Everything's different, but for a bigger product launch, yes, you want to
Mhm.
have some energy behind it. So,
Mhm.
behind that, we will have completed the sales training, so the team's ready to go. Yes, and then flip the switch on your website and begin that demand generation over a period of time, not just one set it and forget it, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's a whole host of things, of course, that you consider as well. Maybe right, the paid ads that you've done from a demand gen. Maybe you've placed ads in trade publications, which could be beneficial.
Mhm.
There's a whole host of things you could do, but I do think I agree there. To I say internally, it's like, let's start shouting about it, right?
Mhm.
So let's put a bunch to really make it, to really penetrate out to your audience. You have to hit them in various different ways. So utilizing any channels that you think they're going to be present in, and anything externally that you can as well to get visibility on it. So there's a whole host of things you can do for sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
that makes sense too, what you were saying about like kind of depends on the size of the launch, if it's just something that can kind of be phased out in like little pieces versus like there's an actual moment or day where you kind of announce it or whatever. So,
Yeah, you don't want, I mean, you know, well, the good thing is with industrial companies, product launches don't happen that often anyway,
Yeah.
mhm.
right? It's
Mhm.
at least, for smaller companies, you might have one, maybe
Mhm.
two a year. So it's probably worth make having excitement between every single time,
Right.
because it gives your sales team something to talk about. It gives them a reason to give them a call. They love having
Mhm.
reasons to have a touch point with a customer that way.
Right.
But I think maybe my example is more for companies where you have several things happening, launching
Mhm.
all the time. You don't want to use up that mind share for something that's small. But yeah,
Right.
definitely want to create energy for the big product introductions for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. Makes sense. So, last question I have kind of on this topic is how you use like customer feedback or even feedback maybe from your internal team, whether it's sales or customer experience, to modify your strategy. Kind of going way back to the beginning of our conversation where you said there's kind of a sliding scale when it comes to audience. How do you, I guess, learn as you go and narrow in on that audience?
Yeah, well, I think you mentioned kind of like post launch, right? Are
Yes.
you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Post
So
launch. Yeah. Hmm.
I think staying close to your sales team is important. Customer service, sales team, again, inserting yourself into those sales team meetings, or setting those sales team meetings to get
Mhm.
feedback along the way. Hey guys, what are we hearing about? Or even
Mhm.
hearing about what, especially even when things don't go well, we want to hear about that, especially what is it
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
made that go wrong, and understand that. So yep, sometimes, it's the product, or maybe the timing wasn't right, but you get some pieces of feedback that can help you continue to adjust your messaging as well. Because, early on, you maybe only have a handful of customers to talk to, or one customer, depending on what you're
Yeah.
doing. But once you go out, that's when the learnings start happening really quickly. So I think it's completely fine for a marketing team to be making adjustments on the fly. And then of course today too, there's social listening, right? So people might
Mhm.
be responding to the types of ads that you're putting out there. That's
Mhm.
a great opportunity to learn as well. So there's a lot of different channels to get that feedback. It's incumbent on the marketing team to be listening and making adjustments along the way.
Yeah,
For
definitely.
sure.
I was listening to a podcast this morning, kind of in preparation for this podcast, and I don't remember who was getting interviewed, but someone with product launch experience. And he had mentioned one time launching something with the goal of reaching like net new customers. And then after launch, quickly realized that the interest was far greater in their current customers than it was in net new. And so they just kind of like pivoted basically the entire strategy, I think, towards like this new audience. I don't know if anything that major has happened in your experience, but it just kind of like made me realize that like it's okay to pivot, if you're, seeing that response. But
Oh, yeah, for
yeah.
sure. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I feel like I've been talking a lot about acquiring new customers, which is great for sure. But my
Mhm.
goodness, you always start with your existing customer base, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, I mentioned, with different channels, thinking about LinkedIn, that's great. But my goodness, just you reaching out through your company email newsletter,
Mhm.
for example, and your social channels, and those touch points through your commercial team reaching out to customers are so important as well.
Right.
And just something, I can't tell you how many times the sales team has utilized different email scripts that I put together
Mhm.
for them. They really appreciate that, of how to set it up and talk with their customers. So yes,
Sure.
exactly. You're never forget, always start with your
Yes. They're
existing
the
customer
the
base for
first
sure.
call. Yeah, because they know you
Yeah.
already, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's not, yeah, much
Yeah.
easier.
Hmm.
Mhm. Awesome. Those are the 4 mistakes. Anything, Stu, that we didn't
Don't make
cover
them. Right?
that yeah, don't make them.
Well, those are
Anything
the
that
four.
yeah.
Exactly. There's many others, but I guess,
Mhm.
man, if you can overcome those four mistakes that we talked about, you're going to set yourself up for better success for sure. And I think the last thing I'll say too is, if you are fortunate enough to be in the position to launch products for your company, I think it is such a great opportunity. So if you're on the fence
Mhm.
about doing it or not, I really encourage you to do so. Especially someone earlier in your career, it's an opportunity to really demonstrate leadership within a company. You're also going to be able to show your strategic capabilities as well. So
Mhm.
many companies are just craving for someone to come in and really grab their hands around this, because people understand that a product launch is so important. So, you there are more resources than ever today to help develop an effective go-to-market process and plan. Um, Invest some time in doing it, and it's a great opportunity to, I think, level up your career. And you know what? It's a lot of fun too. It's the part
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it.
I absolutely love it. It is, there's not many things where in a marketing capacity where there's so many ongoing initiatives that you need to do. Of course, we've talked about build awareness and build trust, but a product launch is a fun thing where there's a finish line and we can all get excited about it. So I think product launches are a great place to invest in your career.
Yeah, and there's a reward at the end, right? Like
Mhm.
the reward at the end of all the work that you put in. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah,
I
and the
love it.
finish line is key. It's nice to have some like, kind of a moment in time where there's, like, a before and after, you
Yeah,
know?
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just doing the same thing over and over again. You gotta have
Mhm.
something at the end.
Definitely, and even though we, don't sell physical products at Top Floor, you've given me a lot to think about too,
Yeah.
when it comes to kind of our services and how, when we think about, like, repackaging them or, doing something different with them, making that more of a moment, making that more special and kind of like thinking very strategically
Absolutely.
before, during, after. So
I've
I
got
really
and I've got a
appreciate
lot of
all
notes over
that.
here
I
that we're
know,
gonna
me
have
too. I've got a lot of notes
to,
as well.
we're gonna
So
follow
I
up
That's
learned
the
later
best
today
compliment
coming.
you can give me. That's
Yeah.
great to hear.
yeah,
No,
this
we've
is
got
super, super helpful.
a lot of stuff going on over here, and there's so many things that you said during today's conversation that we can relate back to with our own internal launches and marketing and processes. So very excited.
Well, it's great to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again, Stu. As far as kind of best place to reach you, I think we talked about LinkedIn. So Stu Accola, Stuaccola on LinkedIn. I think that's a pretty unique name. I bet you're the only one that comes up. So just click on him and add or follow.
Yes.
Anywhere else or any other things you want to mention before we go?
Yeah, no, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect or follow with me. I love to write about marketing and product launch in particular, and always willing to talk with anyone about this. As you can tell, I'm really passionate about it. So, yeah, reach out if you want to learn more.
Absolutely. Or if you have questions on the Indy 500, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, most of
You
all.
can answer
If you want
those
to talk
most
about
of
Indy
all.
500, reach out.
Please reach out.
Most important.
Yeah, I will be right across from the leaderboard. Again, there's
Yeah,
300,000 people, but you should be
you
able to
find
see
me.
me. Yeah.
You're a little bit. You're tall. You're on the taller end, so you might stick out a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll be the dork with headphones on. So,
Taking notes.
Oh my
Love
gosh,
it.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys later.
All
thanks,
right. Thank
guys.
you.